All right, everybody, welcome into the Couch Potato Sports Show and the pregame show. Your Sachse Mustangs, as they're getting ready to take on an old foe for me and this guy right over here, the Rowlett Eagles, and that is we called those games for 8 years, calling those games before COVID hit, and here we are, our second time calling you missed the Rowlett game last year. So this will be your first. Yeah, you missed it. It was me and Bill because Bill was giving me a hard time saying Rowlett Eagles because I was
Bill?
doing it the whole. Yeah, so you weren't there for some reason. I don't remember what it is, but it's good to see you, my friend. How are things over on your side of the woods?
Okay, I'm a little confused. You're talking to Bill, right?
Yeah, Bill. Yeah, you weren't there for the Rowlett game.
Yeah, you were just saying it was you and Bill last year.
Well, no, I'm sorry. It was me and Butch last year.
I was?
Sorry. Yeah, you weren't there for that game for I forget what reason, but
I don't.
but that was the one. But now you get your first call of the Rowlett Eagles on the other side. But I want to hop a little bit back. I mean, I got lots of people commenting about the 30 and 30 to me. As, sending messages, love what you were doing, and I see what you're doing now. Looks like you're adding more stuff, and what you did, during your time. Talk a little bit about what you just posted, which was really kind of cool. I don't want to steal your thunder.
I just did a post on numbers.
Yeah.
Longest trip,
Miles.
shortest trip, longest drive, shortest drive. How many home teams won? How many visiting team won? Just about every little thing. I made a little memoir along the way on the trip, so I kept documenting things on a daily basis, even what I was eating, so that way I keep track of that. So I just kind of threw out a fun facts of numbers that I had along the way.
I really watch it, especially the miles. I mean, you were talking about the guys who did it before and how many miles you went, which you didn't. No offense, didn't come close to the miles that they did. But I don't know if they actually looked at it and figured out what was the best trip for them, like you did. The planning and everything else. So, go a little bit. Talk a little bit about your longest trip. I think it was 805 miles. Was it? Was that what it was?
Yeah, you mean my longest drive?
Yes.
Longest drive was from Seattle to San Francisco. It was 808 miles. So I had a day game in Seattle. The next night I was in San Francisco. So I drove halfway after the game. Stopped in Portland, stayed at one of my company's guest suites, and then I finished the route on the next morning, which is a Monday morning, to San Francisco, and I got there in plenty of time before the game that night. So I was actually able to check in, even take a good little power nap before I even went to that game that night.
Did you ride the trolley in San Francisco? You had to have done that, or you
didn't ride the trolley, but I got a good video of it pulling up right next to me. So if you go to the 30 and 30 page, you'll see a video of it, and it's really cool because I was down the hill and it came down
right. I seen
right in front of me, and then if I had turned 180 degrees backwards, I was facing Alcatraz.
So wow!
It was a really cool picture. But I didn't get to ride it, but I did take the public transit to the baseball game. Though they do have subway / street level transportation there.
Got it. So Alcatraz is actually one of those really things. The Clint Eastwood movie Escape from Alcatraz was one of my favorites. It was in I'm stuck in the 90s. I'm sorry. Actually that might have been the 80s, but still, it was along that time, 80s and 90s, and I really enjoyed that and learned a lot. And there are a lot of good documentaries about Alcatraz as well. If you get the opportunity or you're just completely bored, check those out. Those are really neat. It tells you about the people who were in there, what they were in for, why they were in for, and a lot of them were people who were convicted that weren't even convicted in California. They were coming from other states.
No, it was a federal prison. Yep. So it was from people. It was the worst of the worst. And if you go, you can actually go and tour it now. When you tour it, when you get on the island, you'll actually get headphones, and it'll say push play here, and then you just follow what the headphones say, and it'll tell you after it shows you something. It'll say, now walk down till you see the door on the other end, go through that door, go to your right, and then we'll talk about the next thing. It's really cool. But one thing about Alcatraz, it actually has, they have a baseball field there. It actually has, home plate is still there.
Oh, wow.
It's still in the ground.
Wow, that is cool, and you can imagine it growing over. But I imagine they kept it trimmed up pretty well around there too. It's not grown over, is it?
Well, there's a lot of concrete there.
Yeah.
A lot of that baseball field was on concrete, so
Ah,
so it was a home plate that was actually pretty much just concreted in. So
got it.
you have to dig it out.
Yeah, kind of interesting. Now, that being said, talking about landmines, land site where you can see all the things that are out there outside of baseball. You had Alcatraz. Outside of baseball, what was the most interesting thing that you've seen while you were out? Because obviously, you just didn't do baseball. You had the chance to see everything out there. What was the most interesting thing that you've seen while you were out there?
Well, and that's what a lot of people think. They think, okay, 30 and 30. And a lot of people on comments on social media was like, well, you didn't even get time to enjoy the cities. And that's incorrect. I had time to get around. Somebody saying they're only 2 hours apart. So I had plenty of time. But the most admiring place that I went that I really enjoyed was Niagara Falls. I come from the Grand Canyon State. I grew up in the Grand Canyon State. When you live there, you don't appreciate it.
You do that. You do that. What's the guy's name? The Clark Griswold.
Oh yeah.
Okay, let's go.
But Niagara Falls was just one that just wowed me. I could have just sat there for hours and listened to the water and just watched the view. It was just totally amazing. If you ever get an opportunity to get up to Niagara Falls, you got to do it. It's just one of the most powerful things that you get to experience.
You were in Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
Did you get a chance to explore Atlanta? Because they got one hell of an aquarium over there. That's one like wife in the Delta, so they go into Atlanta.
Georgia. I've been to the Georgia Aquarium before.
Okay.
Many years ago, but that was actually my second longest trip. Was I had to get from Washington D.C. to Atlanta. And that was also a 10-hour trip. So I didn't have time. I got to Atlanta maybe 2 hours before the game because
got it.
It was a night game the night before in Washington. So I really didn't have time to break up that travel between the two days.
Well, my wife wants to know because the inquiring minds wants to know. And I told her I didn't think you would be able to maybe get this. Were you able to find out what the donations were as of yet, as far as what you were able to maybe add up somehow?
I haven't. And you know what? We actually, just today, we got all our funds in from the t-shirts that we were raising. So we were able to get about $600 from the t-shirts. So we're adding that to the amount that we raised, and so we're going to calculate it because we're still taking donations. Even though the trip has stopped, my goal was to get awareness out, and the donation link is still open. So we're still gaining donations as we can. There's also, I found out that we did have a lot of people that were donating straight to the PTSD Foundation, where we couldn't calculate that. That wasn't accumulated.
Got it.
I had a special. So we're only going to be able to give a rough estimate, but hopefully we'll have that here real soon.
That's really fun. Yeah, she was really interested. I was like, it don't matter how much in reality, just along the way, you were talking about how you were meeting people that didn't know about this kind of help that was out there. And you would think that they would based upon what it's all about, but they just didn't even know that it was available for them.
Well, and that was the biggest takeaway from this whole trip is if I had raised $5 in this 30 days, getting the information out and knowing that I was able to help somebody was well worth it. And I was able to help some people. I had when I was in the Chicago White Sox, I bought a ticket. I sat there right behind the Yankees dugout, and I sat next to a family, and there was about 5 or 6 of them. And I started talking to a guy next to me, and the guy in front of him on the row in front of us heard it, he turned around and said, how much you bought the ticket from me? And he goes, give me your link. I want whatever you pay for that ticket, I'm going to donate to the
Oh,
PTA.
nice.
He goes, I have a friend that's really in really bad shape right now. He really needs some help. And he doesn't always want to listen to family and friends on trying to get him the help. So I was able to get him information right there and then, and hopefully, it's somebody that's in the program now, and then that's getting the help that they need. That was important. Sitting with veterans and talking to veterans. In Arizona, I had a veteran that came up to me that was sitting on the other side of the stadium, but he knew what I was doing, and he came over and started talking to me.
Wow.
It's that to me was just as valuable as any dollar amount that we raised.
I mean, really, Bill, you could write a book. Are you going to write a book? I mean, with the way Amazon works, everybody's writing books now. I got a couple of friends who've written books, and I purchased them. And this sounds like something that maybe you could write a book about.
You know what? I had a family member that recommended that, because I told her I was putting some memoirs together about it. So, you know what? I don't know. I might. I've never been that much of a writer, but I know I used to do Uber stories on Facebook when I was.
That was what I thought about, because I always thought you should write the book on the Uber stories too. But
Well, and that's why, is because a lot of people when I do those, I was so detailed on that.
yes,
I put them in the story on paper. They felt like they were in the story, that I really write well with that. So, I might, maybe.
still get messages about it.
I am every day.
Yep.
People are, are always, there's a Facebook page called Ballpark Chasers that I'm part of. I've received almost 2,800 messages on there.
Wow.
About my trip and asking questions. A lot of it was finance, and you know how social media can be. Some of it wasn't the most pleasant, but for me, it's not what people's perception of me is. But if they walk away knowing a little bit more about the PTSD Foundation, then that's great. But 95% of the people that were on there were very supportive, and definitely following along. Even now that the trip is over.
Still getting media requests to talk about it and things of that sort.
I've calmed down. This last weekend, I had to go to Houston. I had to speak at a fundraiser, a black tie fundraiser. So
Wow.
I got to speak at that. So not as much.
I didn't see no pictures of that. Why didn't you put that out? You in a tuxedo and everything? I must have just missed it.
Yeah.
Wow.
They're supposed to. It was actually at the there with the foundation. So obviously we're always trying to raise money. We're constantly going off. Matter of fact, there's a golf tournament this weekend here in the Dallas area for the PTS Foundation. So we're always trying to raise money for the foundation.
Absolutely. Good.
But I know when I get back from work, the company media department wants to do an exclusive on it. So not as much, but a little here and there.
Yeah. Well, it's really interesting. And again, you're still posting over on the 30 and 30 if folks are interested in seeing it. Guys, I'm telling you, even if you're not a baseball fan per se, you can learn about obviously the PTSD Foundation, learn about the country as well from the eyes of the eagle. By the way, you lost the goat. What happened here?
Yeah, I tried. I wanted to go with the Rico Suave mustache, so I thought I'd give that a try and see. So. I'm gonna get the handlebars a little bit longer, and then maybe get a cowboy hat and a big ass buckle.
There you go, big ass buckle. Oh, I love it. Well, he is Bill. He's Bill Cerna. You never know what he's gonna do.
I'm telling you, I'm gonna do this again. Do this again, but next time
5 years, right? You got 5 years to do it.
5 years, but this time I'm gonna break the Guinness Book of World Records. As long as it doesn't change, I'm going to change it. I'm going to break it and get in that book too.
And so is that the miles that you're going to try to
No,
break,
it's
or?
the days. The only reason I didn't get it this time was because the two guys that did it before, they did it in 30 games in 29 days. I was on pace for that, but I purposely had a travel day, so it ended up being 30 and 30. So I could have done the 20.
Yeah,
30.
you were in where was it? Where you were looking for Denver. You were in Denver with a day off.
Well, no, Denver was the ending, so I stayed an extra day in Denver. But
Oh,
from
okay.
Toronto to Boston, I had
That's
a
right.
day off between there,
Yeah.
but I had a double hitter in Chicago and Milwaukee, so I could have done 30 and 29 days. The
Yeah,
dip,
you could have. That would have
yeah.
worked because you said you got to Boston in plenty of time to see the game.
Oh yeah.
That you weren't scheduled to go to. You could
I
have
had
been to that game.
I had the free day. I even got there the night before and went up to dinner. I had a nice
Wow.
dinner at a fish place right there, right on the bay. So, but the difference from them is that they did theirs in 29 days, but they did theirs in 40,000 miles, and there was
Yeah.
two of them. I did mine in 18,000 miles, so I did over 50% less than what they did.
Yeah.
So
So,
to me, it tells me that they did a lot of traveling back and forth on through airports where
yeah.
6 one-way flights.
Well, you got a good crew over there taking care of that and figuring all that out. I wouldn't have done it. So, but that being said, here we are, second week in district as far as the Sachse Mustangs are concerned. And if you folks that don't know, the way that they do the standings, they don't count the out of district games in the standings.
Yeah.
Now, so just so that everybody understands that, there was only 1 week, and Wiley East didn't have a game. They had their bye the first week, so they're sitting right now in fifth place. Top four on top are the Garland Owls, the Wiley Pirates, the Rowlett Eagles, and the Sachse Mustangs, all winners last week. And the way they do the standings based up on the as far as the differential of the scores in those games to get you the top five. So, or top four. Then, of course, Wiley did not win. Garland, as far as South Garland, North Garland, and Naaman Forest, as well as Lakeview, all did not get their victories last week. So they're actually underneath Wiley at 0-1. So is that right? I said that right, correct?
Yeah, you're correct. The standings are based on the district standings and not the overall standings. So,
Right.
yeah. So you have 4 teams that are 1-0. You have one team that's 0-0 because they haven't played district yet, and then you have the 4 teams that lost. So,
Yeah.
Every team in this district has one bye week during the district season because you have an odd number of teams. That's why you have everybody has one bye week during the season, which honestly in high school football you really need to have one.
Need at least one, exactly. And ours, if I'm not mistaken, first week in October. So we go to the 13th is our next game after that. So that being that, that's the standings, and we run into the Rowlett Eagles, who got their victory last week, as far as to be where they are. So they get the victory 33-13 over Naaman Forest. And we were talking about Naaman Forest last week and how they were improving. But we didn't necessarily know how the Rowlett Eagles were going to be playing because they were 0-2 going out of district. So within district, we've seen Rowlett get the victory over Naaman Forest. I expected Naaman Forest to be there, so maybe they're just a little bit short. But what ended up happening is Rowlett decided to do what Sachse did last week. If you look at the box scores, and when they scored and everything is really close. So you're seeing 33 points for the Rowlett Eagles compared to then obviously the Sachse Mustangs, who got a big victory 31-7. The defense showed up big time last week for our Sachse Mustangs as they were all over the place and making plays.
Well, and you're seeing so many similarities between these two teams. The non-district games that Rowlett played and the non-district games that Sachse played, both were they played some quality teams.
Yep.
I don't think Rowlett played quite the quality, but they played North Forney in that second game, and North Forney has really come on and actually just peeked its head into the top 25. So they've done a lot better. So both these teams going into the district game last week, it could have been very easily say, let's see what happens now that we're in district, and both did almost exactly what they the same thing. They both took care of a strong team, and both of them struggled out of the gate in both games. I think Rowlett was up 12-7 at halftime. We were up 10-3 at halftime, and then we let it. We put things together in the second half, as did Rowlett. So really, you're going to see a lot of similars between the two. I think the difference is going to be the personnel. I think Sachse has a lot bigger weapons than you do with the Rowlett team.
Well, you look at what Rowlett did, or Sachse did. They held Lakeview Centennial to no points in the second half. So defensively played well, offensively 21 points in the second half. So and all around good play. Even special teams were noticeable, which that's what sometimes it's hard to see how special teams come into a play in a high school game. Last week we seen it very well. Good returns, getting good field position to score, and that when you get an extra 20 or 30 yards on the kickoff, or a bad kick or a bad punt or whatever the case may be, it puts them so much in a better spot to score. But defensively, man, oh man, that was what I was expecting, because coach was raving about that defense. But offensively, we seen it, get out of the gates a little slow, not making plays, drop balls. Only ended up with 3 on the drive where they actually probably should have scored a touchdown in reality. However, they end up getting the 3 points, and then it was off to the races. So they got the nerves out of the way. Now, on the other side, when you took a look at Rowlett and how they handled their business, is they started immediately and got out there. It was a missed field goal. That's why they only scored 6 in the first in the first quarter. They mixed the extra point. Then they got more. They just kind of started same way as Rowlett. So looking at the quality of the teams, though, I'm looking at Lakeview Centennial, and if I put them together against Naaman Forest, I'm thinking, and I might be wrong, but I'm thinking that Lakeview probably could and should come out on top in that game. So I'm feeling really good going into this. So if there are any concerns, if you look at what we saw last week, what are some of the concerns that you saw out on the football field, whether it was offensive or defensive or a combination of both?
You know what it is? Penalties. We made way too many mental mistakes in that game, because here's the deal: we out in total yards, we had 3 times more than what Lakeview Centennial had. We missed a lot of opportunities because of mental mistakes, penalties, that were after the play, things like that. Those are the things you got to fix going into
Absolutely.
And I think the offense is doing what it needs to do. I mean, when you got a receiver like Lockett, I mean, the top receiver right now in the Dallas area, averaging almost 32 yards a reception. You don't. The offense is there. The defense showed what they're like last week. So I think it's just the mental mistakes. I think if we can get those under control, I think we're going to be just fine this week.
Yeah, that was a big thing we were talking about during the game, and it was over 10 now, and they had over 10 within the first 2 to 3 minutes in the third quarter. Mm-hmm. So you still ended up getting more penalties later on in the game, or opportunities for it, and we didn't see that. So that was one of the things that I was looking at, as far as you got to make sure you don't make those mental mistakes. Mental mistakes cost you points, yards, big time. And then when you're in a 3rd and long, it just makes it a little bit easier for the defense to see what is coming at them. You're not expecting too much from the run on 3rd and long. So, but you're right. You take a look at what Lockett is doing for the season. He is going to be one of these guys that we're going to be talking about for the rest of the season, as far as what he does. And now I'm not taking away from George getting him the ball, but what he does with the yakety yak, I mean, the yards after catch for Lockett so far this season has been humongous.
Well, and that's going to make you a strong quarterback. Not just throwing the ball as far as you can, but getting the ball to the receivers where they need to get him to. Hanks had a couple of passes where, George put it to a spot and Hanks went and got it. Good quarterbacks do. You lead him and you put him into a spot. But we had twice as many penalties as Lakeview Centennial. We had 12 for 115 yards, and a lot of them were big yards. They weren't, there was a couple false starts and whatnot, but a lot of them were big ones, unsportsmanlike, personal fouls. Those are the things. Those are mental mistakes that that has to get cleaned up. But when you have an offense like that, when you have receivers like Hanks and Lockett, it makes your job so much easier as a quarterback.
Yeah, Lockett and Hanks, big time. They got 29 receptions for 712 yards. They got 6 touchdowns between both of them. But it's the number that, the 31.47 yards for Lockett. I mean, that's a chunk. And listen, Hanks is no slouch behind him. He's got 17. That's the number that you kind of expect, a good player to make. And interestingly enough, they are going after Hanks. Hanks is a big playmaker for them. They got their eye on them. So when Lockett is getting doubled up, and they got a great secondary to go back with Hanks. So recognizing where Lockett is and what's going on downfield on Lockett and being able to see Hanks is a big part of what you're seeing week in and week out with the Mustangs.
Well, we saw it this last week against Lakeview Centennial. Right now, Brendan George, 70% of his completions have been to either Lockett or Hanks. Yep. What that does is that opens up the other opportunities. We had Armstead and Ybarra that we saw in last week's game have some opportunities because of that. There's so much focus on those 2 top receivers. And really, to be honest, you can only focus on really one of them. To focus on the 2 of them is going to leave everybody else wide open. So this is where Hanks gets his opportunities. And then when Hanks starts opening it up, then they've got to focus on Hanks. Now that opens up Lockett up. You really got a 1-2 punch. And the great thing is you got another year with these kids too. They're going to see another year beyond this. So, but it's going to be the opportunities of that 3rd and 4th receiver to make plays, because they're going to have some opportunities just based on the core that you have.
Looking at the Rowlett Eagles, what's coming their way? Andrew Ellison, 40 of 70. He's averaging about 57% of his passes going through there. The key number there, 7 touchdowns. So he's finding players. He's finding them out there, 542 yards actually passing. So he's not that necessarily the dual threat that we saw last week that was supposed to come, which, by the way, we didn't see a lot of. I was actually shocked. We didn't see a lot of movement out of Lakeview Centennial and their quarterback position running the football, which if you looked at the numbers, you were saying, wow, this is good. But when you watch the damn game, as Randy Galloway would say, you didn't see a lot of that. I don't think we're going to see that this week as far as a dual threat in reality, even though Ellison can run the football, but they're not for big chunks like you're getting from Brendan George, who, by the way, is having a magnificent year running the football.
Well, and Ellison is not a runner. Granted, you look at the stats, he's rushed 12 times, but he's only gained 16 yards. So he's averaging about 4 rushes a game, and I'm certain that those aren't designed to run plays. So he's not a quarterback. Where George, you can get that, and George has that size. Now I know he did get shaken up a little bit there in the first quarter. Got his
he did
his bell rung a little bit, but he came back strong. So, but he can hurt you with his feet because he can get out of that pocket. He can scramble and he can run design plays. You won't see that with Rowlett as much. I think you got a 2-headed monster as your running back with Devin Gray and Jeremias Benson. Those are your really 2 big running backs that you're going to see a lot.
Yeah, and depending upon the situation and how it goes in this game, adjustments through the game we saw. And what I found really interesting that from the Capo Cowboy game to this one is seeing the adjustments, which was really neat, and which in turn, especially defensively, when they went lights out defensively, we are seeing speed, we're seeing hits and adjustments to what has been successful in the first half to the second half. So noticing those changes and what they got to do. But one of the interesting things that we've seen in the last 2 weeks is how they respond when they come out in the third quarter and they are on the defensive side of the ball because they didn't win. They stopped big time scoring going in from the second half into the third quarter where there's a possibility of 14-point turn, and they have stopped it. And I don't think we saw that last year. I think we saw some big numbers coming from second to third quarter.
No, you're absolutely right. And that is such a momentum builder is when you can get that momentum coming out of the second half without the ball. If you can stop, set the tone, and that's what they've done the last couple of weeks. And once again, you don't have the ball, so that's your defense setting that tone for the rest of the game and for the rest of the team. So, all week last week we saw that they kept running away from O'Feely all.
Oh yeah, they're afraid to go to that side of the ball, the field.
And I expect to see Rowlett try to do that too. But I tell you what, as long as the rest of your line is stepping up, then that's going to benefit them. We saw that when we used to call for Rowlett. We had Charles Amenahue of one end of the defense, and they always try to run away from him, and he always found himself in the plays. Same with O'Feely. I see those two I see very comparable styles of play between those two. And Charles Amenahue is in the NFL now.
Right. I know he was with Houston. I think that I don't know if he's still with them. He might have moved on from them, but many years in Houston. Yeah, but you're right. Being able to know where the ball is when that ball is not even going near you, that and still being part of the plays. And like you said, we've seen that a lot with Charles Amenahue. When we were calling the games for Rowlett, we're getting that with Philly. And another guy out there, making big plays is Brunswick. Brunswick is one big, by the way, shoulders. Oh my gosh, unbelievable. He's just a huge number 7. If you can't see number 7 out on the football field, you're not looking in the right direction when the defense is out there. You can't miss him making big plays. Not only that, not making just big plays, but when he's making those plays, he's making the other team feel like he is hitting hard out there.
He does hit hard, and he did get caught with one of those mental mistakes, and he had an unsportsmanlike in the game. And I guarantee you, he's his worst critic, and that's something that he's going to correct for himself. But if you watch him when the play starts, you can just see. Obviously, you can't see his helmet, but you can just see where his eyes go, where he's noticing. He's dissecting that play. Too many players are reactors, where he actually will study the play as it's happening to put himself in the right spot.
It's also, you think about this, and I learned this from my many years of Phoenix Roadrunner hockey. You don't follow the puck, dude. If you follow the puck, you're going to be a mess. And really, in reality, if you are just following the ball and you're a defender, you're going to make that mistake that you won't be able to catch up from. And we saw that last year, by the way, is that, yes, they were reading them pretty well, but by the time they were reading them, it was too late. This year, it seems like they're on top of it. They're recognizing schemes better, and that is huge too. If you know what scheme is going to be heading, you got an idea where the ball is, so you don't have to be focused on the ball more so than where the ball might be when it comes to the area that someone's at. And we've seen that this year, I think.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I think we definitely, just focus on that. I'm sorry, everybody's texting me. We focus on that defense, and they don't have anything that will wow you on the Rowlett side of the offense. So it's nothing that's going to really that we got to focus on. I think if we just play a well-balanced team, all 11 out there do their job, I think it's going to definitely be well worth it for Sachse.
And that's what I was going to ask you next. You're looking at it, and I just lost him. There he is. What are you expecting? And that was the same thing I was looking at. My favorite phrase is when I look at Rowlett, and this is not because we don't call the games or anything. When I look at him, I just don't see anything worth writing home to mama about. And you mentioned it on the offensive side. Now, defensively, they'll be there. And even though they scored a lot of points, I just going up against the teams that they were going up against, I think these two are two of the teams that you're going to have to watch out. Like you said, they played a little bit better out of district teams going into it. They had the same idea that Sachse does to try to go in there and do this. I think this one's going to be a really good game, and I'm I'm going to ask you where you think it's going to be won, and I'm going to write down where I think you think it's going to be, and then I'm going to write down where I think it's going to be. So I think I know where it is. So I got stop. Okay, go ahead. So tell me where you think that the game is going to be won. What is the key to win it?
I think we called Rowlett for so many years, and one thing their Achilles that they always got hurt on was not having any safeties up the middle, and they got burned a lot on those long runs up the middle. I can't see that.
Stop big plays.
Yes.
And that's usually what they just ran it right down the middle, man. And we saw that. Well, it's interesting. That's stopping the big plays, and those plays were going right up the middle. They weren't going east to west. They were going north and south and picking up big yards.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think if I had to put a score on it, and this could be a little bit of a shocker, but I'm saying Sachse 34, Rowlett 13.
Wow, we were close. I was going to say 34-20 is what I thought the score was going to be. And where the key of the game is to prevent those big plays. It's got to be right there on that defensive line. And I think we're going to see that because we've seen good play, defensive line, and then the backers right there, recognizing what's coming their way and making the moves to stop it. And I think they actually do it. I think they stop the big plays. I don't think we're going to see the big ones.
Well, I think when it comes to those big plays, I see them coming from us. But
yes,
but the difference is they're going to come from us on the ground. I think there's going to be so much focus on those receivers that it's going to open up some opportunities on the run game.
Yeah, so watch Brendan George with that ball, and hey, Haygood might have that big game. Now Haygood's been out there; he's getting it's been quite physical for him. We haven't seen him break one so far. Well, I've seen him break one when you were playing at Coppell, but since then I haven't really seen him. I'd like to see him break open, and I think we might get that too if they pay, like you said, pay too much attention to one on each side. It might be a problem.
Yeah, I think I'm going to put my my coins on Ridge. I think him out of the backfield, we're going to see a couple big plays from him because he's definitely got that speed.
And the special teams with Ridge returning the ball. Watch out for that. I'm waiting for him to have one of those games where he does it a couple of times. I'm just ready for it. But also, I'm ready for high school football. This is why I get up on the morning. Get up in the mornings on Friday and Sundays. I got high school football, and then Sunday I have the NFL. And I'm just rubbing the hands together. I'm ready for it. And also, this is the rivalry game. Say whatever you want. I mean, each team, has their rival, and this one here, Rowlett and Sachse have been the same because there are a lot of kids that live in Rowlett that go to Sachse. So that you have that roundabout. And like you always say, and a lot of these kids know each other. They went to school together before they did make that switch to Rowlett to Sachse. So there's that going on to it too.
No, absolutely. And it was that way when we were around it. We always penciled in that Sachse Rowlett game, and Sachse was always last game of the season. So it seemed like there was always something on the line during that time. So definitely a big rivalry between the two in the district. So looking forward to it.
I wish this was the last game of the season. That's just a me thing. But since we got Wiley and Wiley's coming in, they have to switch it around a little bit. But I love rivalry games at the end, like you said. And there was always for something, whether it was the last week or the week before the last, there was always something on the line, who's going to be where and where they were going to be in order to go into the playoffs. So we get this one early.
Yeah, we do. We got a little early last year too. So, you know what? This is going to set the tone because, right now there's only 4 teams that are under that. 5, including Wiley East, that have no losses. This is going to knock it down one of those numbers.
One of those teams is going to be 1-1, and believe me, that could be the difference between you not making the playoffs and making the playoffs. Last year we got in because of population. You understand that better than I do. It just drives me nuts because when I was looking at it, going, well, there's no way they make the playoffs. Well, yeah, there is. It's based upon this, and I always forget that because I like just looking at the standings and go, that's the team that should be in, but they don't do it that way in high school.
Sure. There's a lot of bunch up with the records, and as bad as we started, we were still able to work our way back into contention.
Yeah, well, it's kind of crazy. But this year, it's a totally different year, totally different team. And we're also seeing a lot of confidence coming from the coaching staff. And I think that comes from Red Barons and letting these guys do what they do and letting them, set up what they think is going to be good for the game. And so the coaching staff is really working good together. And I think we're seeing that as well. So that's
Yeah, Red Barons he's a natural winning coach. He knows what it takes to win. So he didn't like that taste in his mouth last year of last year's team. So he's getting back up on that horse with these winning ways and continue that tradition here at Sachse.
Absolutely, and this could be the start of it, and where they go and how they go, and obviously how they perform in the playoffs. We already know kind of where that's going to go when they make the playoffs. We already know what section of what the actual districts of where we're going to go when they go to playoffs. We know what kind of teams they are, so I think we, getting ready for that as well. You can't always think about that, especially when you're in district and everything. But the last 2 weeks is a good time when you can take a look at it. So it's going to be fun. All right, so that's going to do it for us here on the pregame show, and obviously a little bit of slash halftime show. We'll take some of that and put it in there. But next week it is what's Wiley, right? Wiley. Yeah. So that's going to be a big one too. So
That's going to be a huge game. That's really going to give us an idea of where we are.
Is it East or just Wiley?
East.
It's East. That's the big one because they won the district last year. So we want to have a good game getting up to that one to where it's smash mouth football. It's going to be a lot of fun.
That's really where we're going to see where we stand.
Absolutely, and that's literally 1 mile that way. So, I'm not very far away from where I live, so I'll be right down the street. And so that's going to be a lot of fun. So we'll get that checked out and we'll be there. But it is the Rowlett Eagles and the game's at 7. Finally, the heat has stopped. Good Lord. Where game number 1, Capel, they shifted it to 8 o'clock at night. So that was really interesting as well. But now it's getting nicer out. So now there's 30% chance of rain if you read the Yahoo, but I don't think, and I read that 2 days ago. So I'm hoping there's a change in that.
No, I think we're gonna be okay. I think we're gonna be just
my beard's going this way. Maybe a little wind, but
yeah.
All right, so that's going to do it for us here on the Couch Potato Sports Show and the pregame show, as well as the halftime show. When we come back here after halftime, it's going to be Bill with the stats here as the Rowlett Eagles and the Sachse Mustangs take on each other at Homer V. Johnson Stadium. We'll be right back here on the Couch Potato Sports Show and your Sachse Mustangs Radio Network.